Hi, this is the Be Well with Michelle Greenwell podcast. Our heartwarming conversation is designed to lift you on your wellness journey. Grab your cup of tea and enjoy the podcast. Welcome to Be Well with Dr. Michelle Greenwell, and I'm very excited to have Christine Ruch with me today for a deep conversation about the nervous system and regulation. And as we go into that, we're going to be looking at the scientific and soulful pathways that support healing and wellness. Welcome, first of all, Christine. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm glad to be here.
As a holistic transformation guide, she supports women on their journey to find the way to bring regulation into the body and to be able to understand what's going on inside and to be able to realize those cues that are coming to them and to recognize the cues as they start to come up. Her journey began with multiple sclerosis, but the journey extends beyond that. And we're looking at the way that the body's innate wisdom and healing potential can be ignited. Christine works with the science and soul, drawing from whole body nutrition, nervous system restoration, spiritual practice, plant medicine, deep self-inquiry, and the use of Eastern and Western healing modalities. But what makes her work so powerful is she shows you the way to be living and living with vitality. She's had over 20 years since she healed from her MS, and she did that in a natural way. And along that way, there were unexpected happenings, as all of us have with our journeys. And this began the way she looked at and responded to the way the body was sending its signals and helping people to realize what was going on. So as we dive in today, as I do with all my podcasts, I want you, the listener, to have a healing session while you listen. So to do that, you can have a glass of water beside you, which we can infuse with the energy of what we're going to talk about next. Or you may have a cup of tea there and some herbs that you've selected. And Christine, what have you got in your mug today?
It's very, very early here in Colorado. It's like, let's see what time it's 6 o'clock in the morning. I have coffee and I have coconut milk and honey in it.
Beautiful. And so your addition of those two pieces, why do you add those extra bits?
Well, I don't really do a lot of dairy, and I do love like a creamy morning cup of coffee. And so I love coconut milk, and it's also really health supportive, medium chain fatty acids, all kinds of good stuff for you in coconut milk. And then honey, because I don't have any refined sugar in my diet. So I just like a warm, sweet, creamy kind of greeting to my day. So I primarily use honey as my primary sweetener. Honey,
Beautiful.
coconut sugar, dates, things like that. But generally speaking, I'm a honey girl.
And I love what you just have shared for people to realize that as they reach for that really easy spoonful of sugar, it doesn't have to be that. And also the choice of dairy can be, there's so many options now. So it really does change what we can do. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And today from the Cape Breton Tea Company, I have To Be Honest. And the two herbs that I chose really lend itself to heart-centered living and the way that we're looking at things. So I wanted to bring that forward. And this tea is part of the Tea with Intention series. And there is an intention on the front, but I actually turned the package over and looked at some of the other intentions because this particular series has extra intentions. And as Christine starts to talk about how we live our life and the intention we bring to things, we're going to start that off with this phrase. So I'm just going to read off the package. Coming back to my center creates a sense of honesty and integrity that brings everything into focus. So that's what we want you to hold on to while you're listening today. And then I just wanted to highlight two herbs and how these herbs work together. So I've got lemon balm and orange blossom. These are plants that are known to calm the nervous system. They soften the heart and restore clarity and inner truth. Now that's how they're working together in a conversation with the rest of the herbs in the package. But lemon balm is known as the happiest plant on earth. And this is one about love and compassion, emotional healing. It helps with sadness and helps also to clear negativity. So I thought this is a perfect way to bring that into the conversation. And the
I
other
love
one was
that.
the orange blossom. And orange blossom is about new beginnings. So as you're listening to this conversation today and you have some new ideas about what you can do in your own life and how you want to go forward, orange blossom is going to help open that idea up for you. This is about brightening the heart, having clarity, and the opportunity for transformation. All right. So with that, I say slàinte, which is what we say here in Cape Breton, and welcome Christine to the conversation.
Thank you.
All right. And you'll notice as I go through the podcast, for those people who are watching the video version, you're going to see me sip as we go through different parts of the conversation. If there's a place where we can have some inner resonance with that, I'm going to sip on the tea. So you'll see me sipping kind of as we go through, but that's a way for us to bring that healing potential to the conversation. So, all right, so let's get started, Christine. And I know everybody's going to want to know your journey. So how do all of us get into these places where we're helping other people with their health and wellness? We all come from a place where we were broken and had to figure out how to mend. Can you start that conversation and lead us into how you ended up at the nervous system restoration idea?
Thank you for asking that. Good morning. Yeah, it's been quite a journey, just like for all of us. And our health journey is indeed a journey. Yeah, I was diagnosed with MS like 20 years ago. I had a very sick childhood and then diagnosed with MS and I always really believed deeply in our inherent ability to heal, but it wasn't really put to the test fully. I stepped more fully into the natural healing world after I was diagnosed. And that was great. Like I got a degree in holistic nutrition and food was definitely my focus and foundation. My past is as a holistic natural chef, and I own a number of restaurants and food brands in Boulder, Colorado, highly successful, and would serve holistic natural food to the community and catered to all sorts of like esoteric dietary restrictions for people, was a gluten-free restaurant, all of those kind of things. But it also catered to like the average guy who just wanted pizza or wings or a beer. And so I loved like kind of creating food that appealed to everybody, but the person who had like a super esoteric dietary restrictions for various health goals or needs or whatever could absolutely dine with me. And then somebody who didn't care at all just wanted something tasty and it seemed kind of naughty, like wings or pizza or something like that, could also eat and be super nourished. Um, and yeah, I was like living the life. And then I wasn't anymore. And I didn't know that I wasn't, I didn't. I just had like one track in my life and I thought I was doing all the right things. I did yoga and I did a lot of fitness and I had a hardcore diet and lifestyle, and and I just didn't know how disconnected from my body I was actually, even though it seemed like I was doing everything right for my body. And very aware of like herbal remedies, like all the things. So it was like, yeah. And then suddenly, yeah, I just changed my mind about everything all at once. And it was very confusing for me because I just officially was done and I closed all my businesses in like 4 days. And if anybody out there is listening and you have like a multi-million-dollar business, you don't just close your business in 4 days. There's definitely a lot of consequences and ramifications for that kind of choice. And so then I paid for that for like a year and I blew up my whole entire life and dismantled everything that I had built. Um, and I put all my stuff in storage. I sold everything that I owned. I closed that chapter of my life and I moved to Costa Rica. And I moved there for a year and a half to try to figure out like what did I do to my life, and it wasn't even really about a health struggle at that time because I had such a hardcore lock on my life. I thought that I was doing everything right, um, And I was, except I was only doing one thing, and that was just paying only attention to my diet. And I didn't have any connection to this other side of myself until then I started working with these two healers, and they totally changed my entire life and turned everything that I thought I knew about wellness inside out. And and then I just went on this deep, deep journey to my own wholeness and my own healing in the most profound way, and recognized during my journey that I'd always had a long past of helping other people in their health journey. And a lot of people would come to me and things like that. And I had a private, it's like a whole nother lifetime ago, but I'd always had a long path of helping people restore their health. And when I learned about all of this, it suddenly became really clear to me how vitally important it was for all of us to really pay attention to how our nervous system actually dictates whether or not we're healthy in so many different ways, and how when we create a different relationship with our nervous system, it's almost like a portal. It's like a portal into a whole nother way of living and being that brings you more vitality, and it brings you greater strength and resilience, and brings you to your truth. And it's just an incredibly magical experience that's absolutely life changing in all ways. And so that's what I do now, is help other people become more aligned with themselves through the nervous system.
That's beautiful. And I love how you said it's a portal, because
Mm.
for people to realize it's like that, choosing that other door. And some of us are sitting near the door. We're almost
Yeah.
at the door. And exactly, we have our habits or rituals. We have our choices that we make. We also have our discretions that we choose. And that's all part of living. But it is that last piece of whether or not you go through the portal. So I commend you on the transformation process you took.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I love that you said two things, sitting before the portal, right? This is what a lot of us do, is sit and we get to a certain point, and then out of fear and uncertainty and all sorts of reasons that are very human and very normal, we kind of stop there.
Mhm.
And we're frustrated as to why we can't gain traction in our healing path. And we keep trying all these other things, but we just won't go through that one portal. And I think it's because of fear and uncertainty, which is totally normal. And I also love that you use the word transformation, because this is why I use the word transformation, what I do, and the word guide as opposed to coach, because a transformation is truly from within, and it's a true journey, all that takes its own path. And it's not some sort of mental structured coaching experience. It's something that absolutely just blossoms within you. And a lot of people are on the verge of that, and they just have to trust that it is a journey into itself. And I guide people and hold space for them through that experience, because it is a life-changing experience to go through a transformation, and then to just be held with love and um, curiosity and gentleness to teach you how to have a relationship with your body and your nervous system, and allow all of the magical healing that comes from that to arise.
I'm thinking about, as people are listening, if they've been going along with the same aches and pains, and as we're talking about the magic, the transformation, held in love, they might not have experienced that. And that may be part of that journey of, yes, to trust, but also to be able to experience that. And
Yeah.
just kind of chuckling back to lemon balm and orange blossom. I don't usually refer back to them in the podcast, but just thinking about how they hold that space, and the ways that you make choices with some of the things in your life that sustain you in that way to walk through that portal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you did comment then about the facilitation that you offer for people,
Mhm.
and that you are on that journey with them rather than trying to fix them. So
Mhm.
can you expand that just a little bit more about things they might be able to be awakened to by spending time with you in that capacity instead of the coaching capacity.
Yeah, I love what you just said though too, is like I don't have an agenda for you. My only agenda is your agenda, supporting you in your path, because I believe deeply like we all heal ourselves. And it's a matter of each person that I work with coming home to their own healing truth and the wisdom of their body and the wisdom of their intuition, and that's their guide. I'm holding space for them to discover that within themselves. And the power in that, and the self empowerment, and the self agency, and the sovereignty that comes from creating that relationship with the deepest part of yourself and trusting that as your guide, is the biggest privilege of all. So you're not, I'm only holding space for you to come home to yourself. And a lot of times it is a little bit rocky and it is a little bit uncertain because you're like learning a new language. And a lot of times in the world today, we don't often create an opportunities for people to really trust their intuition, trust their bodies, believe that the wisdom of their bodies is telling them something deeply important, and to trust and learn a whole new language. And and so I think that that's just really important. I don't want to change you. I only want to hold space for you to change yourself. And not even change, but just really it's really more of a transformation than it is a change. Because like I would say the difference is like you can change your mind. You can change your hair color, you can change your clothes, you can change your diet. Like change isn't permanent, but transformation is. And so if you want to fully transform and never go back to what you were before and be only in your wholeness and your truth, and live with the greatest vitality you've ever, like that's our birthright. And just through that process, your body heals all on its own because it's in alignment. And it's almost like activating our source codes for the healing process to fully align, and bringing all the ways in which we heal together, right? And it's not just your food, you know. I mean, it's a foundation and it's incredibly important, but it's not everything.
Mm-hmm. And so often people will just think, oh, it's because I partied on the weekend, or I ate too much cheesecake. They go to those places where we've been told, those are judgmental pieces that we shouldn't be doing, and then carrying that guilt piece rather than carrying that, yes, it was a party and I nurtured myself, and how do I feel about that? But then you also have those niggly signals that come from your body. Mine is if I eat really good cheese, then I get this pain that shoots down my left knee. And it's very distinct. So I know, don't eat that cheese. I can have cheap cheese. I can have
Very interesting.
it's really interesting. But that signal just reminds me of how much space I have within a certain amount of celebration, and the choices that I make while I'm celebrating, and then listening to that cue. So yeah, it took me a little while to figure that one out. That's a interesting piece, but it's also a freeing one, because I thought I had the joints in my knees, from years of dancing, had been pounded, and so in my mind, I thought I'm lined up for that knee replacement, and here I discover it has nothing to do with that at all. It has to do with one little habit, and that's putting the charcuterie board out for a celebration and having cheese, or pairing it with tea, which I also do. So anyway, I digress from that, but I just thought I'd just bring that idea forward for people, because sometimes we have our minds so set in the decisions that we make, the way we're doing the living, the way we're putting the pieces together, and none of it may be true. And so,
My God, I love everything that you just said. It was like really actually so much wisdom in what you said. It's so powerful. There's a lot of people like you were able to distinguish between what is your body really saying and hold space for the messages and unravel. Like, is it like it to a very specific type of cheese in a very specific place and time? and honor, and then your body healed in like, you don't need knee replacements. You just need to do this one thing. But a lot of us would take those symptoms and then build a story around it. This is where the nervous system comes in, and the ability to hold space for all of these symptoms that your body is experiencing and hold them with discernment. And not like, a lot of times, I love what you also said, something about the language, right? Like holding space for yourself and not like bad talking yourself and like, oh, I did this wrong, or I can't resist the cheese, or whatever, like bad language that we have, and then bad decisions we make from, and stories that we create that are not based in reality whatsoever. And a lot of that is so powerful and so important. And the wisdom from what you just said is like really deep and really profound. And, but it's not a natural thing for everybody to know how to do that. And that's really an important way to begin, is learning how to have the space within your energetic system or within your emotional landscape to discern this without, and hold space for what it is that your body is trying to say, as opposed to creating this language in these stories and then decisions from those stories. And none of that is true, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that question too, what I enjoy asking myself is it true? And very
Is it
often,
true?
a lot of what I'm doing, it's not true. A lot of science, it's not true.
Yeah.
And so when you start asking those kind of questions and you discover, oh, that isn't actually the way it is, what does that open up? And as we go into the ideas of that transformation piece, for people to realize the foundation they may have built, it might need a whole new foundation. Not everybody's going to need to completely change careers as you did. But that opportunity to say, you know, if I set my life up this way, like in the kitchen, I move the plates and the cutlery from one side to the other side, that is a change. But what does it open up? Because that one ritual has moved. Now what opens up? And all of a sudden you start cooking a different way because the right utensils are in your hands. They're not stuffed away somewhere where you can't get them. It just is, it's those small little steps and those inquiry pieces. So I wanted to take us to the process that you've talked a little bit about, which is the nervous system restoration, so that we can dive into this living process that you're able to access for people and help them go beyond those changes to the transformation and the magic. So will you please share some of your wisdom from there?
Thank you. I believe that I start always with like the very simple way, um, is to start creating a relationship with your nervous system. And the way I do that is actually to start to build emotional capacity, what I call emotional capacity. A lot of us don't have any emotional capacity. We get triggered by little tiny things. We're always in our head, and we're always, triggered by something, or we're like, the common like cultural thing to say now is like, I don't feel safe, or, that triggered me, or whatever. Or we find ourselves upset by other people or circumstances and things like that. And I think like we don't have this understanding that we are not our emotions, and they come and they go and they leave us. They are not something that defines us. And we have the capacity to hold all of the emotions that we feel in the course of a day without judging them, acting from them, telling stories about them, creating an identity from them. And so I start there. And then what happens is, slowly, with a lot of love and a lot of tenderness and patience, because a lot of people don't understand too, is like the body heals in its own divine, beautiful way. And we like to believe that we can impose change on the trajectory of our healing process. And in some ways, sure, we can. We can, change biomarkers, and we can go, in some ways we can, but lasting change takes its own time. And I liken it to like the pace of nature, and kind of how we can't force the coming of spring or the blooming of a flower, or we can't rush the gestation process. Um, in the same way, your nervous system will unfold like a flower when it feels safe, it feels seen, and safe and seen by me in the container I hold to teach you this, but also safe and seen by yourself. And so you're creating a new relationship with yourself and a new relationship with your nervous system by recognizing that you create your own safety within. And so we start there. We start really slow and really small and learning to hold your emotions when they arise without, and sometimes that can be really uncomfortable because people want to act immediately when they feel uncomfortable. They feel sad or they feel anxious or they feel afraid or they feel angry. Then they want to act from that, and they're not used to just like holding that emotional state without telling any story. And I have a mantra I have them start saying to themselves. And it's like, there's nothing to fix. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. In fact, everything is perfectly fine. There's nothing to fix. And just starting really small like that. And what ends up happening over time is then you become, it's a much deeper process, but starting really small right there, anybody can do this and start that way. But you'll start noticing over time you build this emotional capacity. And then the little things that used to trigger you don't trigger you anymore. And then you also have the resilience and the capacity to hold space for these bigger decisions, kind of like your knee thing, right? Like you're able to hold space for like, what does this symptom mean? Why do my knees hurt? Do I really need a knee replacement, or do I really need to actually look at the wisdom of your body, which is no, let's like dive deeper in what the dairy thing is telling you, right? And so like if you potentially didn't have the wisdom or all of the background that you do, you would have already had your knees replaced. And you would still be eating that cheese. You know what I mean? And
Exactly.
so it's
Mm-hmm.
like you had the wherewithal to be able to hold space for your own body's intelligence to come through. And then you had the strength and resilience to be able to trust what it was that your body was telling you and then make aligned action from that. And so we kind of start in that way, just really, really small and learning to hold space for your emotional capacity and build that strength and muscle. And then what ends up happening is it seems like so simple. It's like not believable, but actually it is that simple. Your nervous system likes simplicity, right? We are the ones that create the stories around how complex things need to be. But what if it's not that? It's about witnessing, it's about love, it's about gentleness, it's about allowance, it's about telling yourself there's nothing to fix and everything is perfectly right, and just remodeling what your relationship is to your body and the signals that your body sends you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about tea is such a great example because people will choose an herb because it's good for something,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I always have stinging nettle first thing in the morning because it helps my digestive tract. The question is it the digestive tract? And as you're saying, if you go into those emotions and you sit with the emotions of what happens first thing in the morning, you might discover, oh, you have this thought first thing in the morning when you go to the mirror and you look in the mirror and somebody's reflection of you about your eyebrows or the way your hair curls or something. And so stinging nettle can be supportive, but it might not be the priority the body's looking for. And that's why I enjoy finding out how the herbs lift you up, because then you're not making that judgmental call. And you're not also saying, this is the priority body, deal with it, which is what a lot of people try to do. So being able to come
Well,
from a much gentler position.
yeah, and it's actually I love that analogy because what if your digestive problems that you're thinking that you have, which is why you're drinking the nettles in the morning, that your digestive system became agitated because of what you saw in you, the mental thing that you said to yourself first thing in the morning? That's the real problem, not your digestion. Your digestion is like your nervous system responding to your self hatred or your self-doubt or your fear when you look at yourself in the mirror, whatever that story is, right? Like that's the real problem, not that you have a problem with your digestion. Maybe your
Mhm.
digestion is just fine. It's actually telling you something that, so it's not that your digestion is off. It's just that the way you talk to yourself first thing in the morning, that's the real problem. Does that make sense?
Exactly. And then, as you had said also, then people try to solve the problem because we're always trying to solve the problem. And so our
Yeah.
head is busy, right? How do I solve the problem? Well, I could go to, and usually people go to nutrition. They're not thinking about structural, chemical, mental, emotional. They leave all that to the side. And
Yeah.
nutrition seems to be the be all and end all of how we're going to fix things.
Yeah.
Like you said, it is supportive, but it's not really where the focus necessarily needs to be. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love that too. It's just like we do have a pretty siloed way of looking at wellness. And we think of like, oh, it's food over here, or like some people might have a therapist. And then some people might have like a spiritual practice or a religious practice. But they're all kind of siloed and nothing is connected. And we don't actually, like, I have this belief that we create our own reality, right? And we create our own reality, but we also create our own nervous system dysregulation. We often create an entire life in service of keeping our nervous system dysregulated, and we're completely unaware of that. And then in this dysregulated nervous system, then your blood pressure is irregular, or your blood sugar is irregular, or your digestion is off, or your sleep is off, or you get headaches, or you have an unhealthy relationship with your partner, or your dissatisfaction in your job, or you find yourself lacking in your community, or you find yourself unfulfilled in your spiritual practices. You know what I mean? And it all is in your nervous system. And then you create all these stories because you're unhappy. And then you go to see the doctor because your blood pressure is high and you take that medicine and chitty chat about the way you're not super happy with your family or whatever, right? And it's like all of that is not true. And it's just like all of it is false. And if you just learn how to come home to yourself and and then see it from a completely different way, then wow, what a relief to like not have the energy placed in all of those places outside of you. And then your blood pressure normalizes and your sleep gets better and your relationships have more harmony. And it's just like really fascinating and it's really beautiful if we start to understand that there's no silos and they all feed into each other. Like the way you think about your health and your life is the reason why your blood pressure is high, not because you need to change your diet necessarily. I mean, and you should, right? You should have a health supportive diet so you don't have high blood pressure. But at the same time, it's not just because of your diet, it could be because of so many other reasons, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. Um, and I'm just thinking about now as people are listening and the way the stories stack up, because one is like when you tell one lie, then, it leads you down a
Yeah,
whole road of lies. It's
yeah,
that same
totally.
idea. And you think you're leading with the truth.
Yeah.
But when you get to that place where you have those chronic conditions, so
Mhm.
the multiple sclerosis, but we also have arthritis is another huge one
Totally. Yeah.
where people spend a lot of time, and then we have, like you said, the some of the buzzwords because we've got in mental health, you've got your mental wellness and those pieces. So usually that means you've misread the cues for quite a while. And the cue of like my knee, I'm not listening to it. The knee's really bad. So you put more weight onto the other side. Then pretty soon that knee's not so good. And then the foot starts to hurt. And then the shoulder goes. And then this whole ricochet comes through. And we wait until that chronic place to start to make those changes. So, can you share a little bit about the unwinding that happened for you from being diagnosed with MS and then starting to lead through this new pathway What were some of your experiences as things started to unwind?
Yeah, it's so true because you're exactly right. By the time you get to the point where you have like a chronic illness, there's a lot to unwind, and learning to hold space and have trust for the process is the most important thing because we're not used to doing that. But then you know what? As the nervous system starts to unwind and feel safe in a container where it feels safe to let go of everything it's holding because our nervous system is holding all of this, all these stories, all these distortions in our energy field, all of these traumas from our childhood, all these unprocessed emotions. Our nervous system holds all that for us, which is actually pretty shocking and awe inspiring. Um, but your nervous system really wants to let go of all that. Trust me, it doesn't want to be holding any of that anymore. And you know what? I wonder how you feel about this, but you actually, if you're really ready to do the deep work, what ends up happening is your nervous system will just automatically start releasing old things. And you don't need to go in and like find the old story and find that memory and be like, oh, yeah, this is when I was bullied when I was in high school. Like, no, 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 because your nervous system doesn't categorize like those past experiences like that. So it's not even really necessary to label. We want to do that mentally, but that's not what your nervous system doesn't have these categories within itself. Like, oh, this is the trauma from my childhood. It just has the energetic disturbances that it wants to be released of. And so when you're holding this space for someone, what'll happen is your body will naturally start to, things will come up, things will come up. And it's really beautiful because the things that come up are things that were never fully seen before because you didn't have the emotional capacity to hold it yourself. You, and that's the reason why you pushed it aside, pushed it down, denied it. Um, that's the reason why that didn't happen. And so if you can hold space for yourself to feel whatever it is that's coming up and work through it, then it leaves and it never comes back again. And it's just, and so sometimes too, it's kind of like Herring's law of cure, which is where it's like healing is a spiral and it's a spiral. It's not this linear trajectory. And sometimes you will get sick again. You will revisit these old illnesses um, to purge them from your system. And so, like at the beginning, for me, it was like really crazy because, first of all, I was so tired. I couldn't believe how much I slept. But it's like really interesting because I had a whole lifetime of never resting and never allowing myself to sleep, never resting, really bad insomnia. I ran 3 restaurants. Of course I never slept, and I never rested. I never just took time for myself to rest. And so it was almost like my whole body just craved sleep so badly. And I had to hold space for myself for that. I was like so afraid, like, what's wrong with me? I've never been this tired before. What's going on? And I was like, no, 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 no. Trust, it's fine. And then I went through another phase where I had all this asthma. Well, when I was a young child, I had so much asthma. I was on inhalers and albuterol and everything. And I haven't been on asthma, I haven't had asthma in many, many, many years. So I was shocked. I was like, oh my God, is it the dust? I was in Costa Rica at the time. I was like, is it the dust? Like, what is it mold? Like, what's going on? Like, and then it was like, no, 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 no. No, 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 no. This is just your body is just reliving these illnesses and purging them from your energetic field. And that was like a huge that was a lot for me to be able to just like be really tired and have asthma. And the process went on, and then that cleared and I'm full of vitality. I don't have any problems with asthma or tiredness now. But it's just like I had to learn to hold space for my body to express what it needed to express and trust the wisdom of what was coming through and without judging it. And I could go on and on, but I will say that it's a really beautiful process. Through time, you begin to actually fall in love with yourself a little bit because you realize like so much deep respect for what your body did to keep you safe
Mm-hmm.
and what your body does for you. And it's like so awe inspiring and so beautiful that you just are just like taken away by the whole thing, and it creates a whole new relationship with yourself, and what you're capable of and what your body is has done for you in service of keeping you on your 2 feet and going through life. It's just, I could go on and on, but I don't want to do that. I think I said enough.
Well, and it's like that when you stand in front of the mirror, you have a choice, right? You can critique, which you may have done for, in my case, 60 years, critiquing in front of the mirror because that's what you were kind of taught. Comb your hair, make sure there's nothing in your teeth. And then you start looking at, wrinkles and swollen eyes and all those pieces. But there's that other side when you look in the mirror and you go, wow, look at the life I've led, look at the things I've done. And this face is the face of somebody who enjoys living this life. That's a
Yeah.
completely different conversation to the mirror. And
Yeah.
and you're right, we have an innate healing potential. So the opportunity to embrace it and then think how brilliant my body was to bring asthma to the forefront, to show you that you needed to breathe a different way. You needed to be able to release these things and let them go so that system could function better. And I was the same as you. I have a history very similar to yours with all of the asthma and colds and pneumonia and bronchitis and all those
Yeah.
pieces. And to say to people now, like that's just so in my past. I'm thrilled that I'm in the place where I don't have that anymore. But also to look at what was in place for us to get through our childhoods.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a troublesome childhood. So I still had all those ailments while I had a really great family. We lived in a beautiful house. I had a wonderful place to play. I just couldn't roll in the grass or dig in the dirt or play with the flowers.
Yeah, right.
But I do that now. And I do that now. And then I have the opportunity to embrace, this is what I can choose to do now. And I can choose to do it with so much love and opportunity. So as people are listening, that might not be what you're saying about yourself at the moment, because there may be those aches and complaints that are sitting there that are controlling the conversation for you. But now you can think about how true are my stories? And if I changed my story, what would that mean? And what could I discover by changing that story? And where could we go? All right. Is there anything you want to bring to that last piece of the conversation?
Well, that's like a lot of Byron Katie's work, right? And that's, she's this beautiful spiritual leader, and she has the work, and the work is asking yourself these fundamental questions. And I love it so much. And that's been a foundation of a lot of the things that I have all the time that I ask myself, is that true? And then the second question, like you said, is like, who would I be without that thought? Like, who would you be without the thoughts that you carry, like as you these unconscious thoughts that are always rolling through your mind as you're critiquing yourself, you're critiquing your body, or you're critiquing your life, or your dissatisfaction, and various all the questions you have. And everybody's a little bit different, but we all have them. And like, are they true? And who would you be without that thought? How liberating would it be if you didn't have to think like that? And are you willing and ready to release all of that in an effort to live a fuller, richer life? And when I believe that is our sovereign right, like we are not born here on accident. We're here to live our fullest, richest, most divine self. And like, are you ready to walk that path and go find that who you are on the other side of that?
Mm-hmm.
And I trust me, no one's going to say like, oh, I wish I never did that. Nope.
Right?
Nope.
You walk through
You're
that
better
the
than you've
door of
ever done
fear.
in your whole life.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such an incredible journey. And my daughter came out of having cancer, and when we finished that process, and we were on a healing journey, and uh, she wanted to swim with the dolphins, and when we got to the boat, she couldn't get off the boat to get in the water. And the fear was so great. And so it took 2 days before they finally convinced her to get off the boat and to hold their hands, the people that were facilitating, and to be able to get into the water. And so we talked about, after that experience, face the fear and walk right through it. And so there have been different times when we've kind of joked about it, but it's like, we're at that door. So now can we walk through, face the fear, and see what's on the other side? And yeah, most of the time we're never going to say, I shouldn't have done this. You might have learned a lesson and it came out differently than you thought, but that's okay too, because it unfolded in a way that you needed it to unfold, to be able to make a decision.
Yeah, I think that you bring up something really wise and powerful insofar as like fear, and this kind of goes back to where we started our conversation, where we get to a certain point and then we stop. And I believe that in a lot of ways, this is where our culture and our society has done us a disservice, in everything being like a convenience, and everything has to be so easy and convenient, that we've kind of lost touch with this idea of like grit and like the strength and resilience that arises by doing difficult things, and not just strength and resilience, but trust in yourself. And what happens when you start to trust yourself, like in the deepest way? Do we trust ourselves anymore? Like, it's like a real path. And sometimes you have to go through the hard things and the scary things to find the gold on the other side. And that's like, what if fear is a portal, just like your nervous system is a portal? And like courage is like the ability to like walk through fear and transform fear and transcend fear. And I think like we don't share enough. Like, we try to keep our children safe from everything, and we have a very coddled society and culture, and a lot of people feel like, oh, I'm not safe and I'm afraid, and we cater to that. And I think it's to our detriment, actually. It's like there's a fine line. Obviously, you know, modern conveniences are certainly helpful. But I think when we get to this point where we believe that nothing in our life has to be hard, and when it's hard and induces fear, we should avoid it, I think that we're doing ourselves a big disservice. And there's something very liberating and powerful that comes from facing fears and walking through them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I was just thinking about the nervous system regulation, in that when everything has a chance to be in balance and flow, those emotions, that fear factor, might not be at the 20 out of 10, it might only be at the 7 out of 10,
A
because
hundred
everything
percent.
is regulated. And people don't
Yeah.
realize that either. Yeah.
Yes, you're exactly right. And like, so yeah, you're looking at something that you find so scary right now, you can't even possibly, but then, if you go through this process and then you were able to go back to that same thing again, it wouldn't even register, or would register, like you said, far differently than it did at the beginning. And this is part of that emotional capacity, is like you build the strength in yourself and you trust yourself. And I just think it's so important. This world is a crazy place right now. There's a lot of systems that are breaking down, and there's a lot of people questioning like what's happening. And it's like important, I believe, like at a meta level, that we start to learn how to trust ourselves, have build emotional capacity, come home to our true selves, and start to cultivate a different relationship with who we authentically are as humans. And all healing is self-healing. And I believe that like we can't heal the universe and everything that's happening in the world today. It all starts with healing ourselves first. And when we heal ourselves, then our light shines brighter. And when our light shines brighter, we shine brighter for everybody. And that like raises the energy and the vibration of our community and of our families and everybody around us. And I think like that's the best way that we can make change in the world, is be the change within that we want to see in the world. And it starts with changing ourselves.
Hmm.
And so that's why I'm just so passionate about this work. And I'm really passionate about this work in this time and place as we're experiencing all of these cataclysmic changes in the world today. I feel like it's of utmost importance for all of us to begin to have a new relationship with our nervous system and recognize its deep importance in the world today and in your own path in this lifetime. And it all begins with us.
Hmm. Hmm. While you were talking, I was my next little piece on here is going back to food. But what came up is really interesting in that when we have that nervous system regulation happening, we have the emotions, the frequency of everything has come up. When we go to make the food choice, then it's not over to, I'm going to eat the broccoli because it's good for me. I know that I need to have more greens in my diet. I need to have more color. But those choices are like pulling that energy down. And so when we have this higher level of energy, when we go to the food, there's an engagement with the frequency of the food, which is different than our dialogue about nutrition. You want
Bingo.
to?
Totally. Oh my God, I love that. Yeah, absolutely. And it comes from within you, right? Like, not this mental idea of like, this is the right diet. I must eat my broccoli because my doctor says, and I've listened to everybody online, and I have to have broccoli. That comes from this place. It doesn't come from this inner thing of like, oh my God, that broccoli is calling me. I need to eat the broccoli, you know? And yeah, the food has like amazing vibration. And like when we're able to meet that vibration, it does actually raise our own vibration. And it is interesting too. I feel like I love this around the food though, because we have so many like so much dietary dogma. I had a restaurant that catered to all of it. I had all of my own dietary dogma. I believed that I had this super micro intense controlling diet. I was super controlling of my diet to keep my MS in bay. Now I have nothing but liberation and freedom. Now I have celiac disease as well, so I don't eat grains. But for 20 years, I didn't eat. I would say I would look at cheese and break into hives, and I couldn't even look at an egg. Now I can eat 2 eggs a day and all the dairy I want. And it's like so fascinating because it's like, well, what was that really true? Did I just tell myself that and I created this fear around it and created all these things and rigidity and constriction around the cheese and the egg when she's an egg is beautiful. It was just my relationship with it and the stories that I told myself. Actually, it was because my nervous system was so tight that it was angry at everything that I ate, you know? But now that my nervous system is so free and I'm in a totally different place in my life, now I'm not afraid of food and food is not my enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can fully receive the nourishment of all of the food that I choose and it wants to nourish me, you
Yeah.
know? And it's a beautiful relationship where the food sees me, I see the food, and it's just like this beautiful thing that comes from within. And it's not like this dietary dogma that's like external or like mental. I don't know. I don't know if I fully answered your question,
Oh,
but your
yeah.
relationship with your food totally changes as well. And it's really beautiful because food is an energetic vibration and it does want to nourish you. It's like from the start to the finish, it wants to nourish you. When it's in the
Mm-hmm.
ground, when it's growing, when you're preparing it, when it's ingested, all the
Mm-hmm.
way through, it wants to nourish you.
Mm-hmm. And that leads me to two thoughts. One is, when you have an allergy to something like it was one of my clients was apples,
Hmm.
and you go, how can you have an allergy to an apple? That
Yeah,
doesn't make any sense, right?
doesn't make
And I
sense.
can say that from all the allergies that I also went through. But that's when you question, it doesn't make sense. So I need to do something different because that cue is telling me things are not in balance. And so
Yeah,
being able to bring that around. It's a little bit different if it's, something that comes out of the ocean. We don't know about the pollutions and the toxicity. So there are some of those pieces, but for the
for
most
sure.
part, an apple doesn't make sense.
No,
So,
an apple doesn't make sense. Yeah, and Yeah, but it is just really interesting how food is really meant to fully nourish us. And yeah, there are things like pesticides and all kinds of different nuances of things. But also, if we have the resilience, it's not that we should all eat a crappy diet and eat any old fish out from the sea. It's not necessarily like, because I think that we should honor our vessel, and we are to be in the richness and fullness of our life, then yeah, we should be eating food that fully supports our path. And that's not to say that sometimes you can't go and like have the ice cream or have the thing that's not, you shouldn't have that kind of like, oh, I can't ever eat that. Like, no, 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 no. Like you should have full freedom, but it's a matter of self-respect and a matter of loving yourself. And like I love the idea of like, around these diets, I feel like it's important to create a different relationship with why we do these things, and like especially as it relates to a health condition, and looking at what your diet, if your diet supports your health. And it's like not to take things away from you, but to signal to your nervous system that it's safe,
Mhm.
and to reduce like the stress load on your nervous system. And then over time your diet can widen and broaden again, because I think like a micro diet's not necessarily good for us. um, but I think like having a different relationship with why we change our diet, and it's about like self-respect and self-love, and giving your nervous system the foundation of keeping it like in this less inflamed state. And then your nervous system will actually thank you. It's like thank you for taking that away for a night, for now, until we work on all these other things.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hmm.
And there is an unfolding that's going to happen. So as people are listening, we don't know what that unfolding is going to be, but that
Yeah, yeah.
opportunity um, to be aware of all of a sudden the joints release. And then
Mhm.
you realize you're doing things you haven't done for a while, bending, picking up, whatever, or going for a walk a different way. But all of a sudden you do it without that awareness. And that key piece is that's when the effort isn't there
Yeah,
and
I love
you're
that.
on the right path. Because when it's that effortful all the time, there's still that push that's going to go on. And it's being
Yep.
able to back up to that softness and the gentleness of it just happens and you're not
Yes,
aware. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what's so beautiful too, is when you make those connections. Like, oh my God, like my knees used to hurt so much when I climbed stairs, and now I forgot all about that. I don't even know what happened to that pain. And that's just like really amazing, because these little things will just start to shift all by themselves. And and then you start to like become a little bit more like in awe of your body's desire for equilibrium, and your body's desire to have homeostasis, and your body's inherent ability to heal. And that, when you touch that part of who you really are, it is like awe inspiring, I think, for me especially. It's just like wow, what our body really can do. It's really beautiful.
Hmm. I want to just come back to a couple things before we finish, which is you had talked about the freedom. So the fact that when the MS symptoms were present, you were very controlling over the way things were happening, how and like you said, if you're going to run 3 companies, you have to be completely like that in order for things to happen.
Yeah.
But that also has a price. So as people are listening and thinking about where in their life they might just be so gripping down on things, that might be a good place to start and start to look at why are you gripping so tightly. And the second part you said was the freedom of choice. And you were talking about food to be able to eat anything, but that also becomes the freedom of choice of aches and complaints disappear. So now you can go for that walk or hike that you didn't think was possible. So how much we can open the space of possibilities. Um, so I just wanted to bring that back around because I think those were two key pieces that people can just start to look at what they're doing and then start to identify where they may want to begin. And to begin, can you share a little bit about how they can work with you and the program that you have so that they'll know where to turn to find the right answers.
Sure. And I love what you said about freedom. I love that. I had such a hypervigilant life before, and I wasn't even actually aware I wasn't totally free, you know? I had built this identity around my hypervigilance and believing that it kept me safe, right? And if I even stepped one foot out of that safety zone, then I would have consequences that, I wouldn't be able to run my business. I had MS. and so, um, yeah, the liberation and like to just sit in them for a moment and imagine yourself without any of that baggage that you carry around um, ways you're not free. Everything that you just said, I can't even say it any better than that. But yeah, as it relates to working with me, it's a 9-month process. I mean, I do work in shorter, like 3, 6, or 9 months. Sometimes people like to just like dip their toe in the water and start with 3 months, and then they recognize the value in continuing the process. But my ideal scene is like a 9-month container. It's like the birthing of you, birthing your new self. And it's all about a gentle holding and a gentle container of safety and love. And you don't realize how powerful it is to be held with safety and love, because it's hard to believe that you don't actually have it necessarily in all the ways that you think you do.
Exactly.
And what happens when you're held in this container of safety and love and full acceptance for all that you are, and full belief in your ability to step into the fullness of the way that you were created to live this life, is just that alone gives your nervous system so much space to start to just do what it's designed to do, and for you to learn to trust yourself and trust your body and trust your cues, and allow the things that are held within your nervous system to slowly release, and you to start to make connections to who you really are and face your fears and go through this process. And you're held with safety this whole entire time. And then yeah, it's a transformation that then unfolds, and you become free. Your health will completely shift. Your relationships with everything in life will shift, and freedom will find you in all of the ways that it's meant to find you. And I also love what you said too. It's very individual. Everybody's, and this is why I love it so much and such an honor, because everybody is so different and everybody is so unique and their path is so wholly their own. And it's just a witnessing, and it's an honor to witness the process unfold.
Mm-hmm.
So you can find me on my website and read all about my work. I also have a Substack. I write about the process of restoring our nervous system and all the different ways that we heal. And you find my Substack, it's attached to my website, and you can read about my container. You can also schedule a call with me and we can explore the path together. And yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So as we bring the conversation to a close, I've got the sun beaming in here today. I feel really
my sun is rising.
backing up because it's just getting brighter, and it's funny because there was these big dark clouds, so I wasn't really thinking the sunbeam was coming in, but I'll just move a little bit further back. But I just wanted to bring us back to the T reflection. So looking at, to be honest, the opportunity to look gently at who you are and what you're doing, and asking the questions, is this true? And is this where I need to be? And then being able to bring in a gentle clarification and allow the opportunity for you to focus in a new way. So as we do that, I just want to close with one more sip. And thank you so much, Christine, for all that you brought to this conversation. It's been lovely today. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really enjoyed our conversation.
As you move forward with what you're doing in your day and with your life, think about the ways that you can be honest and open and courageous to just ask some of the questions and be curious. So with that, I invite you to think about your body's wisdom and then make the choices that help you to be well. Take care, everyone. And thanks for being here. Thank you for listening to Be Well with Dr. Michelle Greenwell. There are a couple of resources I want to just point out. When you go to the website greenwellcenter.com, you'll have a pop-up window. That pop-up gives you the top 8 easy stress releasers that you can use every day. That's something you can put beside your computer, the bathroom mirror, beside the bedside table. A great resource. Also, my YouTube channel. It is full of playlists with all kinds of different ways that you can activate energy and bring vitality into your day. You can find that when you go to YouTube at Michelle Greenwell. And last, if you're a Linktree person, Linktree, linktr.ee/Greenwell Center. That has all my resources in one spot. Those are for intricate little things that you can't get everywhere. And it's a wonderful way for me to be able to share all the different aspects of the kind of work I do. So thank you for listening. Be sure to drink that tea. And if you want to have the tea blend that was shared in the podcast today, then be sure to check out capebretontea.ca. Have a wonderful day.